Hey guys, I wanted to do a quick kind of review and kind of unboxing of the 8BitDo NES 30 Pro game controller. So I've heard a lot about this controller. I've actually had it for a while. I've had it for months and been meaning to do a review of it. But I'm just now getting around to it, and everybody raves about this thing, so I wanted to kind of check it out and then run it through a bunch of different kinds of games and then give my impressions of it. So let's first take a look at kind of like just an unboxing. I've already unboxed this, but I put everything back into the packaging just so I could show kind of what everything looks like. So this is the unboxing. It comes in kind of like a sleeve, nothing special, although the boxing does seem pretty premium, kind of like an Apple device. It's really nice. You know, it's not cheap cardboard or anything. Got these little kind of foam inserts. Here's the controller right here. It's about the same size as an NES or Super Nintendo controller. We'll kind of come back to that here in a second. Another foam insert. Then down here at the bottom, we've got this kind of cardboard situation here. We've got a manual that has details about how to hook it up. And then in the bottom, we've got a pretty standard micro USB controller, cord. This is for charging it. It does not come with a wall charger, so it's just the cable. So you're going to have to plug it into an existing charger that you already have, or a computer or something like that. You can even charge it into, like, if you have a Switch or a Wii U with a USB port, or even an Xbox, something like that. And then you also get this kind of little extra keychain. Hopefully you can see it there, little keychain. Just kind of like an extra that they threw in. So that is the packaging, and this is the controller. So, like I said, the controller is, pretty decent. As far as the feel, the build quality feels really good. So as a comparison, here is, this is a Super Nintendo controller. This is actually from the Classic Edition, so it's not an original controller, but they're identical in size and dimensions, so you can get a kind of an idea of how big this is. It's generally the same, maybe a little bit smaller, so there's not as much distance between the buttons and the D-pad. And then you also have these kind of controllers down here, these hats. They're pretty small. Up here at the top, you've got two buttons. You've got an L1, L2, R1, R2. Right? Down here at the bottom, you've got your power button, menu button, and then you've got a pairing button over here to the right. You'll notice that around the controller, around the edges, there is an LED. The LEDs let you know pairing status, charging status, things like that, and so that's pretty helpful. On the face of it, you've got your normal D-pad, you've got your select start, and then you've got your X, Y, A, B buttons. And then also these hats controllers, they also click in too. All right, around the back there's nothing special, just kind of just like a little label there that says 8BitDo on it. All right, at the top is going to be also your charging port. That's where your micro USB goes. All right, so as far as like the feel and the finish of the controller, I would say this is very good. This is as far as how the buttons press, and the controller feels like, it feels hefty. I mean, it's light, but it feels well made. The plastic I think they use is good. The materials that they use is really good. So as far as like the build quality and all that, I'd say that this is really well done. I believe this goes for about $40 or so on Amazon or on their website. So you can pick it up, fairly inexpensive compared to some other controllers. And the one thing I do like about this controller is it is very versatile. So it's a universal Bluetooth controller, and you can actually play it with it using the USB cable, or you can connect it via Bluetooth. And so it actually works with Mac, it works with iOS, it works with the Switch, it works with the PC. It probably works with Android. I know it works with Android a bit, according to their documentation. I'm not quite sure what other systems it may work for. I don't know that, like Xbox or PlayStation. I don't know if they even have Bluetooth built in, but so I'm not sure about those, and I haven't tried them myself. But it does connect with most consoles, and so it is pretty good in that regard. So as far as the actual gaming and real use experience, It's been kind of a mixed bag for me. I've read a lot of reviews on this controller and seen a lot of really good things about it and heard a lot of good things about it. My issues stem basically from two things. One is the Bluetooth pairing. I don't know if I have a faulty unit or what the deal is, but I have issues pairing this thing with Bluetooth. And yes, I've tried the instructions. I've even watched videos online. Sometimes it pairs, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes I have to really fool with it and keep powering it off and powering it back on. And oftentimes I'll pair it with my Switch, which is what I normally use it for. And, I'll come back, maybe a day or two later, and when I go to turn on, it doesn't auto-connect like they say it does. And it's almost like I have to repair it each time. And that's a pain. I don't expect to have to pair this thing. And I don't believe that that's what, is intended with this. So I don't know if I have a faulty unit or if it's just a common issue with this thing. I haven't seen many complaints with that. So let's just say that my unit may be faulty. The other thing that, and it may be hard to see, the other thing that I have a little bit of issue with is the hat controllers. So these joysticks, if you look really closely, and it may be difficult to see, but they're not centered. Like they kind of both lean to the left a little bit. Like if you look at that, I mean, you can kind of see what I'm talking about. It's really difficult, but they kind of lean to the left of it a little bit. So I haven't noticed any kind of like real world gaming issues with that. Like I haven't noticed any problems with, my character wandering or anything, but it's kind of odd, And the other thing is these little controllers here are really tiny. And that's kind of my other complaint is that I wish they would have made this controller a little bit bigger. I mean, it is comparable in size to a Super Nintendo controller, but if you look at the size of the Super Nintendo controller's buttons, and also the size of the D-pad, there's no comparison there. I mean, the Super Nintendo controller is one of the best, if not the best controllers ever made, especially for, 2D type gaming and for precision jumping. Whereas this controller right here, the buttons are really small, which kind of reminds you of the Switch controller. And the D-pad is something I'm not impressed with. I've heard people rave about this D-pad. It's small, first of all, and for most games, like if you're playing a Super Mario Odyssey or Zelda or something like that, it'll be fine for modern games. But for games like in the 16-bit area, for example, I was playing the Mega Man Legacy games, where your precision jumping and sliding and all of that have to be really precise. And I just have issues playing that with this controller. I mean, you would think that this controller would be perfect for that because it's mainly used for the D-pad function. And I just have trouble sliding. I have issues where I'll go into a jump and all of a sudden it'll slide because I don't know if my thumb's kind of rolling over it or whatever. And I don't have those issues with a Super Nintendo or Nintendo controller. So I'm going to say that that's an issue with this controller, not me in that case. The only other problem is this, the cable, the charging cable that you get with it. The fit here is not very tight, and so it wiggles. So sometimes you have to wiggle it a little bit to get it to, detect the controller when you're trying to charge it. So that's another kind of small issue, and that's not a huge deal, but just something else to note. So generally speaking, what are my thoughts on it? And I'm probably not going to be in the mainstream when I say that this controller has led to more frustration than it has enjoyment. And I think that's kind of the main thing that you look for when you're looking at a controller. A controller should just get out of the way. It's just a tool for you to be able to play your games. And if it causes frustration, then in the end, I don't think that it's a good fit. And that's what I've had. That's my experience. Mostly with the pairing. Like I said, if it wasn't for the pairing issues, I would highly recommend it. But with the pairing issues and then the combined issues of, the D-pad not being as good as I would have liked it to be, and it being a little bit small. For kids, I think this controller would fit perfectly, but for an adult, my thumbs kind of roll on the D-pad. I think everything needs to be just a little bit bigger, and I think I would be satisfied in that area. And so I'm not sure if the other 8-bit controllers, you know, are similar, but, you know, I would like to see a larger version of this controller for sure. So in the end, build quality, I give it an A. When it comes to use case, I would say probably like B minus, C plus. And as far as looks, I would also give it an A. It's a really cool controller. I mean, the LEDs on it, you know, the kind of look of the original Nintendo for this model is really cool. It's a comfortable controller. It's got kind of the dog bone rounded edges, so it's very comfortable to use. Just a little bit cramped when it comes to the size and, you know, like the pairing issues that I mentioned. But outside of that, it's not a bad controller. So as far as me, am I, you know, regretting purchasing it? I wouldn't say that I'm regretting purchasing it because it is pretty versatile. But, you know, if your hands are big and you want a precision wireless controller, there's probably some better options out there, and I would take a look at those first. But outside of that, it's not a bad controller. It's not horrible, and like I said, the build quality is really good. And so maybe I'll get a different one and try out the pairing mode and maybe see if that was my controller or if it's just an issue that they all have. So that was just a quick look at the NES 30 Pro controller by 8-Bit Do. I'll put a link in the description to where you can find one on Amazon. And like I said, if it's something that you want to check out, feel free to go ahead and spend that money and see for yourself. Thanks for watching.